Now for our roundtable, good to be back with the gang with schedules, and I was out in California on vacation. It's good to be back, and we're going to talk a little bit about something they're doing now. Little podcast. They're leaving the nest a little bit. They're going to still be here. Mariana Mancuso, Republican political strategist, author of PoliticalHype.com, blog aimed at conservative millennials, and longtime News Channel 5 political analyst and Palm Beach Post outstanding political reporter Brian Crowley. And so I don't get emails. I always do this when I start naming names. Elizabeth Warren, another big name in the Democratic sweepstakes. As the Congresswoman and I were talking, I was bringing all the names to mind. There's 20 of them now. I need a score sheet for the debate that we're all going to be covering in June. Talk about, though, right now, Joe Biden in the race. Talk about your sense of how all of that plays out with Joe Biden now in, as we look at his video, and he's going to be out and about in Pennsylvania, hoping to recapture that from President Trump in 2020, should he get the nomination. Brian, your take.
Well, the first most important thing he did on Friday was he needed to have a first 24 hours big fundraising goal. In that first 24 hours, he raised $6.3 million, more than any other candidate. The closest candidate was Beto O'Rourke,
Congressman from Texas.
Former congressman, who raised $6.1 million in his first 24 hours. And the Biden campaign is noting that 61% of his donors were new donors, so they were not from an existing donor pool. So Biden comes out of the gate in the lead, raising money, and in the first 24 hours, that's important.
Talk about the pluses and minuses. We've heard 76 years old, first of all, white male in a party that really wants diversity, wants a woman on the ticket, that views are too centrist for a party that has moved left. And yet we get a sense from the leadership of the Democratic Party, their first and foremost obligation, they say to themselves, find somebody who can win. Given all that, size up the Biden candidacy now.
Well, it's safe to say Biden has 2020 vision. He's working really hard to get to the nomination. And I think what's important to say is that when we start talking about, oh, there's too many white males, well, the Republican Party has currently 2 white males running for president, and the Democrat Party has a lot more white males. But at the end of the day, we saw Joe Biden come out of the gate very strong. $6.3 million in 24 hours is phenomenal, beating not only Congressman Beto O'Rourke, but also Bernie Sanders, which I guess from what I understand recently is kind of scorched a little earth with Bernie Sanders. He doesn't want everyone taking all his money, I guess.
Is your sense, what I hear you saying at the end of the day, you feel Democrats will pick pragmatism, who can win, over progressivism, which is what the leftward-leaning part of the party is really trumpeting. Is that a fair sense where the debate will be with them and with voters for the Democrats?
I don't know that we know the answer to that, because if you look at the 2016 race on the Republican side, nobody thought when Donald Trump was coming down the escalator that time, nobody. There wasn't a single Republican who thought Donald Trump could win. Everybody was looking at Jeb Bush as the pragmatic candidate who, because of the Bush family name and his own reputation, would be able to not only win the nomination, but go ahead and win the presidency. And I should add that they thought that his Hispanic wife, his Mexican-born wife, his half-Hispanic children would add to this multicultural aspect for the Republican Party. And they went with Donald Trump.
But I think we need to keep in mind, Joe Biden came out of the gate also with an endorsement from Gwen Graham. And I think that that's important because that gives him kind of a leg up on the competition. He's coming right out of the gate with $6.3 million in the bank, and now he's got an endorsement locked in Florida.
Talk about Florida 2020. Of course, Donald Trump wins in 2016. You heard Congresswoman Frankel and many in the leadership or more veteran ranks of the Democratic Party saying, listen, we want the Mueller report fully vetted. But you could hear her saying, whoa, on the talk of impeachment. You've heard that from Nancy Pelosi. Nonetheless, the talk's out there. How will that play? How will Democratic candidates answer to that? What's your sense of how it might shape the dynamic in Florida, both in the Democratic primaries and as we look onto the general, because it's going to be an issue all next year?
They have to keep the momentum going if they really want to continue to drive this point home. We know that Miami will be hosting the Democratic debate with 20 of the candidates in June, and in order for them to really keep this above the fold, they're going to have to keep beating the drum, but they have to also be careful because at some point voters will fatigue and tire of hearing about the Mueller report and impeachment and all of these things, and they're going to focus on kitchen table topics which affect their pocketbook immediately.
And in the general election, the argument will be from Republicans, no collusion, you move the goalpost again. And as you said, do they tire of that? And what's the flip side of that as you look way beyond these primaries?
I think a lot of rank and file Republicans and Democrats are tired of all of that. I think they want to get back to talking about the issues that matter to them. There is no big smoking gun that has come forward. I think the Democrats in Congress need to be careful in moving forward with an investigation so it doesn't look like it's just trying to continue a story that doesn't have any end and that it's all just for political effect. They need to start talking more and more about the issues that are important to voters.
Let's talk about Florida and Russian interference in the 2016 election. All sides agree, though the president has not talked very much at all about it since the Mueller report came out. I don't recall any quote from the president about it, but virtually everyone else talking about it and agreeing that Russia did try to interfere. The Mueller report said Russians gained access to at least one unnamed government computer network in Florida. State election officials said they don't think it's true that our election was not impacted, but your assessment as we looked at 2020 and the validity and security of elections in Florida and how we move forward, that too will be its own issue.
Well, Senator Rick Scott has asked to meet with the FBI, and they have agreed over the next few weeks to meet with Senator Scott and with Governor Rick DeSantis to talk to them about their findings. And I don't know how much information they'll reveal since it is an intelligence investigation, but I think they'll wind up with a clearer picture of what took place in Florida in the last 2 election cycles. And look, the state should be taking it seriously, and election supervisors should be taking it seriously.
In our last 30 before break, you two are branching out from To the Point. Talk, pitch your podcast you're doing. I love it.
Yeah, we've started a podcast called High Tops in Politics.
All right.
And
because they both sometimes wear high top sneakers that you all don't see in here. They look great. I should buy it there.
Yeah.
So tell me a little more about it.
And it's basically it's a weekly podcast on Florida politics, and we go all the way from Tallahassee right down to Miami. Sometimes we even hit the Keys.
All right, sounds good.
And we try to have fun with it. You know, we try not to have just a long, ponderous discussion about politics. There's a million places you can find that.
What are you staring at me when you say that?
We try to have fun. We try, we laugh. We have a good time with it. As we also talk some serious stuff, and we try to keep it short enough that you can enjoy it on your commute.
Good, love it. Tune in. Can't get better.
High Tops in Politics.
Back in just a moment.